Howdy everybody, it's me, Austin, once more. Coming back to make yet again another one of these interesting videos. So, I've talked about seeing a Jinn. I've talked about the time I thought I saw a goetic demon in my apartment. And today I'll just tell you pretty much all the things I can remember off the top of my head that I could classify as a Jinn. Now, before I begin, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this topic. Shadow people and Jinn are two sides of the same coin. There is a video I'll go ahead and link in the description. It's from a taping of the Art Bell show, which was pretty much a pretty popular conspiracy theory radio news show that ran for years until, the host's unfortunate passing away. But there's an episode from the late 90s that I discovered myself about 10 years ago now, when I was a senior in high school. And I still listen to it to this day. But Art Bell has this man on, I think, from the Twisted Hairs Prophecy, which is basically like a conglomeration of different Native American tribes that have all this shared similar folklore, and they kind of intertwined it into one thing, right? That's the gist I got. I can't find too much information on it, and the most I could find on it, even 10 years ago, was this really obscure dated web page that hadn't looked kept up in well over a decade, and it was ancient by 2015 standards, so imagine it today. But I'll link that video because I don't want to be wasting too much time going into the different intricacies, but even he says, it's compared to the Jinn. When I first started talking about these experiences before I even studied Islam or any other religion super hard, the first people to talk to me about my shadow person experience were Muslims, and they kept telling me that I was seeing a Jinn. And, growing up with those superstitions, you get tired of hearing that shit. But then when I was 18 and I listened to that interview, it made a little bit more sense. And now that I'm 28, it makes total sense. So basically, to spare you any more jawboning on that, shadow people and Jinn are essentially the same thing in that they are beings that live in a parallel dimension, and sometimes there is this bleed over where they can exist in ours and vice versa, right? And where it seems to differ so far in my reading in Islamic and Native American folklore is that the Native Americans do think there's benevolent ones. It does not seem that way in Islam whatsoever. But the gist of a Jinn is that they are trying to make your time on this earth as unpleasant as possible. Whether that be small things disappearing inexplicably, whether that be causing you to lose your job, your love, your life, your livelihood. These things are nasty. They know what makes you tick, and they know how to fuck you up. We don't really know why they're so malevolent, but the biggest theory seems to be that these things literally either A, get intoxicated off, or B, literally sustain themselves off of the negative energies that we emit when we are having a negative reaction to something. That's why a lot of people talk about shadow people in a sleep paralysis type of episode. that is a type of jinn. They can get in your dreams. They can knock you out of your dream state and put you into sleep paralysis and put you in that terrifying headspace where you're totally aware that you're asleep, but you can't do nothing about it. The only thing I can tell you is don't open your eyes, because you're not going to like what you see. These things will infiltrate your dreams, all sorts of stuff. But now that I've meandered on, let me take you back. I can probably confidently pinpoint the first time I ever saw a shadow person / jinn would be probably the age of 9 years old. It was the summer of 2006. I want to say it was around June to July of 2006. I was 9 years old. I was in the middle of summer break, brushing my teeth, but something happened in my first childhood home. I lived in a very small beach town by the name of Chesterton, Indiana. And something changed in that house in that summer. The energy got really fucking weird. And I felt pretty safe for a long time, but then at a certain point, I just felt like I was being watched, stalked at all times, even when I was alone in the house. And I couldn't take it anymore. I just couldn't take it anymore. I was losing my mind. It didn't feel fair that I was feeling this way in my own home that I'd been in for almost a decade now. And then I saw it. I was brushing my teeth and looking in the upper right-hand corner of the mirror in the bathroom. And I could see basically like where the ceiling meets a wall. And I saw a fucking terrifying, cloudy-looking, ghastly-looking little boy in the shape of a black specter. A fucking smoky black portal opened up on the fucking ceiling. And then another one opened up on the wall. And this thing just corkscrewed into the other tunnel or portal, and everything just disappeared. I mean, I was terrified. I mean, literally terrified. I ran out of the bathroom. I couldn't tell my mother because my mother thought I was just freaking myself out with spooky movies or whatever. So I was just left to my own devices, you know, and that was the perfect environment for that jinn because my parents didn't believe me, and I was hyperactive reacting to it. You know, that's a match made in hell. I didn't really see anything like that for a while, but I started racking up bad karma when I was 14, 15 years old. And I paid the price for it. I used to sell drugs when I was a kid. And I got arrested for it. And I got expelled for it. When I was at home, things, I was starting to see things. I was still going out, you know, into public and stuff, so it wasn't like I was gone from the public at large and kind of in one of those solitary confinement type of deals. No, I was still home, I was just expelled. But I'd start seeing, like I referred to in my demon video, that's when I first saw these weird tiny white beings that look like a mix between a gray alien and an elf or a dwarf. And, you know, I used to see them in the peripheral because I had like this big, my closet door was a sliding mirror basically. So I really liked that I could see all around me from my peripheral at all times. Until I saw this thing grab the base of my chair like that. I mean, I fucking donkey kicked that chair when I was 15. It flew back. I turned around. I didn't sleep in my bedroom for 6 months, guys. This thing terrified me, terrorized me. It was just marinating the anxiety for months and months and months until it finally appeared. Keep in mind, this incident happened in late January 2012. I did not see this jinn make an appearance until August of that year. So it's August of 2012. I'm 15 years old. at this point, that same energy is amplified a trillion times. I've been ostracized by all my peers as a dirty, gross drug dealer, and I deserved every bit of it. And a lot of people had a lot of opinions on me, and I became a really cold and hard person because of it. And the one person I liked in this world at the time, besides like good friends, was this lady that I had this on again, off again, kind of sort of relationship with, right? And we got in this nasty fight, just nasty fight, and to the point where her friend is talking to me. And I tell our friend basically in the most polite way possible that I'm not going to talk to her about this, and that I'm fucking tired and going to bed. It's about 3 or so in the morning at this point, and I can't go to bed because I'm actually so mad that my nerves like kept me up pretty much most of the night. And then especially after, what had happened. So I was laying down on the couch, and it's a big living room. And my second childhood home had a doorway like right here and a doorway back here to get to the kitchen. It was like a renovated barn. So you have to like think about it as like you're kind of going around all the old architecture of the existing barn. So we had like this big center wall with like 2 doorways on other sides. It was really weird. But the couch at the time was against the handrail for the staircase, right? And the TV's up here, closer to you guys. And that doorway's right there. This is the doorway we're talking about. So I'm back here laying down. Not laying down, actually. I'm like sitting, but kind of lounging back. And I'm pissed. I'm all I can think about is like whatever trivial fight with some girl I don't even think about anymore. So I'm sitting there, just brewing, stewing, and I see this little black shape pop out in the doorway. And at first, because we had like a spice cabinet up against the wall on the other side, I thought maybe like one of our cats had gotten up there and it was just maybe their ass end poking out of the doorway. But this shape keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Until eventually I see this much of a pitch black thing with glowing red eyes and a very long curvy arm coming out of the doorway. Zips back really quick. Zips back into frame. Now I see the whole thing in the doorway. Whole thing in the doorway. It's all there now. Looks at me. Then it zips back behind. Then it zips back into the frame again. So I can see it again, and I'm just terrified. Like, it's a mix of being so terrified of a circumstance that is so supernatural, you have no idea how to react or what to do. You're equal parts amazed, in awe, stunned, and fucking terrified. Then when it finally revealed itself the last time, it instead of going behind the doorway again, it went all the way into the center of the living room, probably about 12 to 15 feet in front of me. This thing got to the middle of the living room in a split second, made no noise, and yeah, it was just right there, probably like 7.5 feet tall if I could estimate, and this thing was still crouching. It had black, odorless smoke coming out from its waist and basically every joint on its body. The details got really fuzzy around those parts, but the rest of the creature was just pretty much pitch black, about as like Vanta black, pitch black, absorbs all light and super sharp outlines, almost like a graphite sketch or something, right? And then the other parts was just a very weird, like, odorless smoke. It didn't have a hat or nothing, but it did have glowing red eyes. I looked at its eyes once, looked down, and scanned it all the way back up, and I locked eyes with it again, and when I did that, I felt a shock wave from the center of my chest shoot through all of my limbs. And at that point, and I wasn't even asleep, mind you. I was not asleep. I never fell asleep. I couldn't move any limb in my fucking body. Whatever this thing is doing in sleep paralysis, it has the same ability to do it to you when you're asleep or awake. And it feels fucking terrifying. It literally feels like the strongest 9-volt you've ever licked in your life for a split second, and you can't move. And I didn't know what to do. I was terrified, but I knew I couldn't give up, and I knew this thing was going to have to kill me to get what it wanted. So I'm sitting there thinking about what I can do to get away from this thing, and of course, for some reason, the thing that I thought was going to protect me was to lift a blanket over my head and put it over my head. And let me tell you, people, that took a lot of mental strength. For some reason, when you're in that headspace, it's just hard to move. Like, I really had to focus. And then I had to pick up my cover. Mind you, my cover felt heavy. Like, physically felt heavy. Felt like I was trying to bench press something. A fucking blanket. And I threw it over my head. And I sat like that for probably 2 hours. 2 hours. Before I gained the courage to rip the blanket from off of my face, because I was convinced that no matter how much time had elapsed, when I pulled that thing off of my face, that thing was going to kill me, and I was just going to have to deal with it. So I just was, at 15, making peace with my own mortality, that a supernatural creature was just around the corner of executing me. And I wish I could say it ended there, but that would have been the most major encounter that I would have ever had, right? But these things, if I think about them too much in a fearful way, they'll always come back. But I'm not so afraid of them anymore. You know, I've had a friend that's seen one. With yellow eyes, immediately called me, didn't know what he saw. And then, funnily enough, that same night that he saw one, remember, I said they can get in your dreams. Oh, they got in my dreams. And I remember I was there at my ex-wife's street in this dream, looking at her, like, my old in-laws' house. But something felt very wrong, like one of those spooky liminal space videos. That's kind of the vibe I was getting. Everything had like this really grainy film effect over it. And I was like, it was like walking, it's hard to describe, but it was like walking through if a still photo was the world. Everything was quiet, still, didn't make any sense. It felt like I was roaming around a picture. But I felt off. I felt like something was with me. And that's when I turned around and there was this jackass neighbor next to my ex-in-laws. I mean, this guy like tried to start fights and shit with them all the time. Maybe it was telling me this man was Jinn possessed, I don't know. But I turn around and in that man's driveway, which is the next door neighbor, and I'm in the middle of the street in this dream. I look and I see it in the distance. It's black with red eyes, and I immediately wake up. That's how you know too. When you lock eyes with a Jinn in a dream, you will always immediately wake up. But anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this little lecture. I hope you found some entertainment or information out of it, and I'll be sure to upload the or link the Art Bell show episode that I was talking about. But anyways, that's basically the gist of the shadow person / Jinn. One and the same concept, two different cultures. Typically bad news. That's all I got for now. Peace be upon you all.